empty shelves for a break to fill, or driving across town to find out your hobby shop closed at 4 when you always have a card show in your pocket. With Loop, you can instantly buy cards, packs, boxes, or into auctions with the click of a button, and do it all while chatting with some of the best personalities and the best community in the hobby. Download the Loop app now on iOS or Android. Loop, a card show in your pocket.
Fish Stripes Live, presented to you by Loop. We're here for yet another series preview before the Miami Marlins take on the St. Louis Cardinals. Today I'm joined by Kevin Barral, Eli Sussman, Mr. Brent, and Alex Carver. And our special guest today is Tanner McGrath. He works for the Action Network, working on handicaps, loves to bet on the Miami Marlins. Tanner, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to give us sort of a little background on what you do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all for letting me be the special guest this week. My name is Tanner McGrath. I work for the Action Network. I've been doing it now for 2 years. I have a confession. I am actually grew up a Red Sox fan and only discovered last year that I have an addiction to betting on the Miami Marlins because every single day they're getting plus money with like Sandy on the mound. It's like plus 150, and it just looks too good every single time. I've probably done it 100 times in the last 2 years, so I know this team as well as anyone, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, well, like you said, I guess times must be a little bit tough. I know the last time Sandy pitched against the Mets, they were still underdogs for some reason.
Plus 140, and we should have won that game, but whatever.
Right. Well, as always, we will start by sort of recapping the New York Mets series. Miami lost 2 out of 3. As most of you correctly predicted, I unfortunately thought I was a little bit optimistic and thought the Marlins would maybe win 2 out of 3 with Sandy starting game 1. Brent and I were there on game 1 when Sandy just made one real big mistake in that 6th inning, giving up a 3-run double to Francisco Lindor, Marlin killer. Just sort of, start with, Eli, Kevin, your thoughts on just that series as a whole.
I really can't be talking about the first 2 games since I was not able to watch it as I was out of town. But that third game, Daniel Castano, another good start from the Italian stallion, just went out there and shoved, kept the game in play for the Marlins throughout the whole time, kept it a 2-2 game through most of the game. There's not much more to say. The offense came in clutch at the end. Nick Fortes mainly got that absolute bomb to finish off the game, and we'll be talking about him soon. But I'm glad they were able to avoid the sweep and beat a team like the Mets in a 1-run game, which has been the Achilles heel for the Marlins this season, losing in those games. So
that Sunday lineup was pretty high up on the depressing really Marlins lineup list. They sat Jazz. They sat, again, this is against the lefties, and Jazz has had his back spasms, so maybe you can understand that. But not even Soler and not even Avi Garcia, who's kind of been a lot better in recent weeks than he was earlier in the year. So instead, that whole bottom third of the lineup, automatic outs. And I think they actually were automatic outs the entire game. Like that part actually did follow up to expectations, but they got that much needed Miggy Rowe home run in that one. Not to be forgotten that Miggy Rowe is well on a path for a career high and like 14 homers if he stays on his current pace. And of course, Castano. We've talked about it before, how it looks like the adjustments he's made, the fact that he is a soft tosser and now he has really leaned into that. He's not even throwing that many 4-seamers anymore. He's leaning on his secondary stuff, and that could allow him to achieve a little bit more than we thought that he could. So that was encouraging. He kept it close enough. And honestly, a lot of guys in this bullpen at this moment, I'm more confident in the bullpen right now than I have been probably at any other point in the season. There's still the weak links like Richard Blyer, like Tommy Nance. Do you know where Tommy Nance is? Because he's pitched like once in the last 10 days. He's a non-factor. But outside of those two, almost everybody in this pen right now is kind of trending in the right direction. So that's a little thing.
Yeah. With Castano, very quickly, he's relying on the cutter. Unlike 2021, it was a very small sample size. It was like 6 starts or something like that. He relied on his fastball, which was the pitch he's been using the most. So he's completely gotten away from the fastball pretty much. It's like a 13% use right now. And he's going to that cutter, which it seems like it's working perfectly fine because he made that start against Philly, absolutely shoved, goes against Colorado, gives up 4 runs. But besides that, he was pretty solid overall. And then you go into this start against a really good New York Mets team that had their best players out there on a Sunday, unlike the Marlins, and he shoved. So I guess just a pitch mix change is working for Castano, and he's definitely earned himself another start and as the placeholder for, I think, Edward at the moment.
Yeah. Tanner, as Kevin mentioned, sorry, Alex. As Kevin mentioned, the Mets, the best team in the National League. Were you more optimistic going into that series for Miami to maybe win 2 out of 3, or did you have a tough feeling that they were going to be lucky to get one? Or I don't know.
I thought we should have won 2 out of 3 of that series, but I'm the ever optimistic probably of every Miami Marlins fan there is. Tanner Scott's basically in the full-time closer now role now, right?
Yeah.
I think that makes me feel pretty good about the bullpen. I think there's a lot of upside on this offense. I mean, Miguel Rojas on June 12th, his OPS dropped below 600. Since then, 326, 326, 512. And I think Garrett Cooper is going to keep breaking out. I just love what I'm seeing from him. Just multi-hit games over multi-hit games. Tough series in New York. What are you going to do? Managed to avoid the sweep. Got to be happy with that.
Alex, Brent's thoughts?
Yeah, I was glad to see them avoid the sweep. I thought we were going to take 2 out of 3. I thought Sandy just had one bad outing. And, he didn't really have his best stuff. Like, I was at the game with Isaac, like Isaac said earlier, and his stuff just didn't look as sharp as it usually did, but he still managed to go 7 innings, which was really good. And like Eli said, the bullpen for the rest of the series was good too. Perhaps maybe him going 7 innings is the reason why they were fresh and they were able to – I think they allowed 2 earned runs for the whole series, which is always a good note. So, it just shows how good Sandy is, and there's just numbers that can't show how valuable he is to his team.
So Sandy allows 4 in that start, the 4 earned runs in that start, right? And he still goes 7 innings, like Brent said, but just the second time all year that he's allowed more than 2 earned runs in a start. And he loses that ridiculous streak that he had of quality starts, going at least 7 innings. But I mean, he's still, even though he wasn't his best, like Brent said, I think I agree that he definitely wasn't his best, gave up 2 homers, but still effective. And his ERA goes up to a whole 1.95. So Sandy's ridiculous, as we know. So a couple things that I noticed, especially on the bullpen, as Eli was saying, Dylan Floro looked better in this series. It looks like velocity is coming back for him. I think Eli posted about that on Twitter. And then I'll be the first one to admit I was wrong on this guy, Jimmy Yacobonis. Like I thought this guy was nothing when he joined the team. I didn't think he was going to contribute to the major league team at all. And he's been ridiculous. Like the movement on his pitches is just silly. So yeah, the bullpen looks better. It's still not perfect, as Eli said. There are still guys in the minors that I talk about all the time that I think should be here over some other ones. Namely Tommy Nance. Flyer is locked in because he's making guaranteed money, but he has not been good. So yeah, I still think there's some things they can do to fix it internally, but overall they've looked good. The one thing they didn't do in that first game is hit with runners in scoring position. They had 11 hits, and how many runs did they get? 3. So didn't do enough runners in scoring position in that game. They had enough offense. They had enough hits. They were seeing pitches. They just weren't doing it with runners in scoring position. So it sucks. And then the second game, they didn't do enough offensively. So yeah, everything together, good to avoid the sweep. Sandy's still good, even though not perfect. And the bullpen's been great. So that's your takeaways from me.
Yeah.
Jimmy Yacobonis, first team, all name team, by the way. And the unreal name.
And really quick with the bullpen, I mean, I think we're starting to see more of a trend with no longer mix and match. We're starting to see finally this bullpen form with the 7th inning with Bass, 8th Okert, 9th, then finally Tanner Scott. And I mean, you look at where these guys are pitching, especially Bass. I mean, 7th inning, 1.10 ERA, 20 games. The guy's just pitching out of his mind compared to last season, 2021, where he struggled mainly that first half of the season. Then, after that, just incredible. And then Okert at stepping in and to that 8th inning role, just pretty much doing what he has to do, getting those outs he needs, especially with how critical that game was in a 2-2 game where he comes in and just shoves for the team. And then Tanner Scott throwing strikes. I mean, he was a little bit out of control at the beginning of that 3rd game closing, and then he kind of stepped it up and got the ground ball help, some fly balls there. So overall, I like how the bullpen's going. It's trending in the right direction. Now we mentioned Tommy Nance is, I guess, the big glaring name that really needs to be sent down or DFA'd. So we'll get into that at some point when we talk about the 49ers.
Yeah, the two final things I just sort of want to touch on about the Mets was Sandy, as pedestrian as that final line did look, he really had some bad luck. I thought his stuff looked excellent. He was touching 99, 100 most of the time. His slider did look pretty wicked. That first inning home run to Lindor, he got screwed on that check swing. He definitely went around, didn't get the call. Next pitch, home run dead center field. And that whole sixth inning fiasco where you have Jazz not in the ball game anymore, was probably a much better defensive second baseman. Astudillo tags Brandon Nimmo with an empty glove, has the empty, and then the umpires, up to their discretion, announced that both runners were safe. That he got kind of screwed on that one. He made one big mistake to Lindor, as I mentioned previously. And then, like you mentioned, Kevin, the ninth inning on Sunday's win, you're right. He did, he walked the first guy and he had a runner on second base with nobody out. And his mentality was able to, he got out of it, no runs allowed, threw some great sliders, didn't have the control of the slider that he usually does to begin that inning. And he was able to get back into it. Roster move before the Marlins enter St. Louis, before the game starts at 7:45. Brian Anderson, first game since May 27th. He has been reinstated from the IL. And, beautiful blonde man Luke Williams has been sent to AAA Jacksonville. Brian Anderson so far in 2022 is hitting .267, getting on base at .374, slugging just over .410. Couple of run. Your guys' thoughts on just what an impact Brian Anderson can make, both defensively and offensively?
I think it's an upgrade. I mean, Luke Williams, I feel like, is very underwhelming at the plate. BA is always a threat to hit a gap, and it seems like Luke was very unconfident at the plate and looked like he didn't belong.
I hope he keeps walking.
Yeah,
his walk rate's up like 5% year over year. Projections are really, really high on him. I'm happy. Any bat in this lineup is needed right now.
Yeah, he was doing very, very well before he got hurt. Talk about walks. He was walking at a ridiculous rate. Ryan Anderson, 13% walk rate so far this year. Like, that's just something he's never done. Like, I'd walk at that higher rate. I'm guessing it'll probably come down a little bit. But, man, like you guys said, huge upgrade, huge guy to get back. Luke Williams, unfortunately, his bat is not major league caliber for me, unfortunately. He can move around to positions, which we saw in one of these games. This series where he started at, I think, started at third, moved to second, and then moved back to third base. So that's the one thing he does, is gives like positional flexibility and ability to move around as you need him. But when you talk about offense, Ryan Anderson has it and Luke Williams is not. So it's good to get this guy back for sure.
Where would you guys slide him in the lineup?
I think where they have him, 5, 6, 7, that area. I think they have him a little bit low tonight. But I think that 5, 6, 7 spot is where he flourishes. I think that's a good spot for him. And, I know he had that really tough start to the season. Those first 4 games, he didn't draw a walk. He was 2 for his first 17. But from April 12th all the way up until his injury, he was above average major league. He was hitting .280, has an OPS of 827. So he was one of the Marlins' better hitters for that,
127 WRC plus.
Yeah, he's a very good ball player on both sides of the ball. So I don't think, his impact can be understated unless any of you guys disagree.
Early in the season, he was batting as low as 8th in the lineup. I mean, and he's actually pretty close tonight, 7th. So I do wonder exactly how it's fascinating. It was a weird puzzle to fit entering the year where they just felt they had more than 9 quality hitters and only 9 lineup spots, even with the DH. And that's kind of still the case. I mean, as it turns out, De La Cruz it hasn't sustained the way that we hoped this year. So that's one off the board. But Birdie has been better than expected. And now he's a guy that early in the season, he was certainly on paying a smaller share of playing time compared to BA. And now I don't know exactly when you compare those two. I mean, which of those two is going to be starting more games moving forward, Birdie or BA? And because they're both right-handed hitters, they do play slightly different positions. So there are a lot of games they'll be in the lineup together. But also with Wendell knocking on the door, we expect him back later this week. It's as good as BA is and as versatile as he is. I don't think he's going to be a true everyday starter with the current composition of the roster at the moment. It's going to continue to be a good problem to have where you have, and the reason why it was a bad problem early in the year is because Soler sucked out of the gate. And what's a stronger word than sucks for Avisail Garcia? He was just an automatic. He was an automatic out for that entire time when BA was healthy, and yet he was continuing to play almost every single day. So they just hope that no one individual player is going to be in any sort of deep extended drought for the foreseeable future, and it's just a good problem to have, to have him back for all the little things that he does well.
And it gives Miami, what I guess one of their biggest improvements in the offseason was depth. That's something that they lost in that month of May and the start of June with all these injuries. They're little by little gaining that depth back, which is huge, and especially with how BA was playing right before that injury, it's nice to have him back on the team. And I guess we wish Luke Williams the best in AAA.
Yeah, and we need to wish Tortuga well as well.
Yeah.
Now that he's DFA'd, I think that was a little surprising that they did that. They could have optioned him. They didn't need to squeeze him off the 40-man right now, but that's the way that cookie crumbled, and we'll see exactly what happens. My understanding is that he's actually going to have the flexibility to elect free agency if he wants to, and instead of accepting an outright assignment. I don't know what he's going to do or what his path is going to be coming back, but he had some fun moments and he had some terrible moments, like you mentioned a few minutes ago when the Sandy start. Got the good and the bad. We got a t-shirt out of it. Not a great t-shirt.
Got a t-shirt out of it.
When he was pitching for his pitching appearance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, we will miss those guys a little bit. Hopefully, they both stay in the organization. Mainly Astudillo. He's a fun guy and he is I guess, somewhat serviceable up in the big leagues, just as long as he's not playing defense or running the bases. The one reason the Miami won a ball game against New York was Nick Fortes, backup catcher, start of the year AAA. They went with Peyton Henry, who I thought right away was just an interesting choice, just given the offensive, output that Fortes was able to do in his cup of coffee last year. Fortes hitting 289, has an OPS of 965, and obviously a very limited sample size. When do we start talking about whether he should be starting more against Stallings, who's really been underwhelming so far in his first year in Miami?
I think
Start talking about it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say right now, but I would like to see him catch Sandy and Pablo. He's never caught Sandy, and at least in 2021 he didn't. He hasn't done it this year. I know he's caught a couple bullpens because I saw it in person, but besides that, he hasn't caught Sandy in a major league game against live batters, and I would love to see that. It won't be this series. Maybe this series we do see it all of a sudden, but if we do, then that would be kind of interesting. But no, this guy, he's providing the offense that the team needs. He's providing the offense that Stallings, which we expected, isn't providing at the moment. And he's actually been playing some serviceable defense, which Stallings really hasn't done this season. He's been solid, but he hasn't been 2021 Gold Glove Jacob Stallings. His lovely streak of pass balls, not allowing a pass ball, should have been over like 2 months ago. And then it should have been over in that second game against the Rockies. It got overturned like 3 innings later, something like that. So, Nick Fortes, man, hit the walk-off, and you should be, he did this in 2021 as well. He was hitting at a consistent rate in 2021 in his cup of coffee in the major leagues right before the season ended. This guy needs to be up here a lot more. I still don't understand why they chose Payne Henry over Fortes at the start of spring training to be that catcher. I guess they were looking for defense. That's what we all assumed at the time, and Fortes is providing both at a very good rate, so he should be considered as the starting catcher in 2023, and maybe as early as the second half of the season if things go a little bit south.
It's such a small sample size, but to note, his expected batting average is over 340.
Yeah,
which is absurd. Yeah. So he could get just better. He could hit even better. Obviously, it's such a small sample size. We just have to see. Someone touched on the defense. Has he always, in the minors, was he always a good defensive catcher?
He's been more hitting first catcher for the most part, but he has really impressed me with the blocking, pitch calling. It's really improved at a crazy rate. And
especially in that Philly game with Castano. He just put on a clinic, as Noah would mention, but yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to touch upon that. I've been on the Fortes train since he had that good outing with Castano. I saw him working with Castano real well in the dugout. And just the way he would talk to him in between pitches, the pitches he would call, how far he would set up. I feel like that's a big attribution to his success was the way that Fortes can control the game. And Stallings doesn't do a bad job either, but just with such a young guy, it's a green flag.
Yeah, as I mentioned today on Twitter, actually, I would like to see Stallings continue to catch Sandy and Pablo. You don't, screw up what's, not broken. It's working fantastically for both of those guys. Both of them have career seasons. Fortes caught a lot of these guys. He caught Edward Cabrera. He was catching Castano. He was catching Garrett. He's catching these young guys in AAA. Now he's catching them in the big leagues. Is that something that would be I guess, quote unquote dope? Is Fortes just continuing 3 games out of the 5 turns to the rotation.
That's what they're doing at the moment, if I'm correct, and it's working. So don't break what's already working. I guess there's another way the saying goes, but you know what I mean. I mean, if it's working, don't break it. So keep it up, and I mean, maybe this guy. I would like to see him catch Sandy at least once, just to see how it goes, because if the guy does well and Sandy pitches the way he does as usual with Stallings behind the plate, I mean, he's already making Castano look pretty well.
The one thing I'll point out, okay, a couple of things. The one is that the decision to put Henry over Fortes coming out at the start of the year, I think a lot of that was not just a one-on-one comparison. It was predicated on the idea that Stallings was good and that Stallings was going to play close to every day and that there wouldn't be much of a substantial role for the backup catcher coming out of spring. So as impressive as Fortes has been, a big factor why we're having this discussion is because Stallings has been so underwhelming on both sides, even more so offensively, that he's given them really nothing in that category. And he's somehow been a downgrade compared to Sandy Leon and Alfaro and Wallach that they had last year. And that's hard to imagine. So that's one reason why we didn't really obsess too much about the backup catcher starting the year, because that wasn't supposed to be like a big role on this roster. Now, the other thing is talking right now, it's not only about comparing Stallings and Fortes, it's also keeping in mind that you have a DH spot. So right now, when Cooper isn't at first base, he's the DH, and that's understandable. I think you'd have to say he's probably the most talented pure hitter on this team. On days when Cooper's playing first, to this point, it's usually been Aguilar at DH. My question is, what makes Aguilar a better DH than Fortes on those days? I mean, I don't think that should be an automatic that Aguilar has been almost an everyday starter to this point in the season. I don't think that should, there's no really basis for that continuing. Yeah. There've been ups and downs this year, and you put it all together, and Aggie's like slightly better than a league average hitter. Right. And Fortes, not just the small sample size results, but you look under the hood and you look at the exit velos, they're just as good as Aggie on the high ends, and he's making even more contact. And of course, he's a better base runner as well. Like, that's one thing I want to touch on, is that his athleticism at the catcher position, and compared to other DH options, is up there as well. So when he gets on base, even when he's not hitting home runs, like, he is a more valuable player than when Aggie is in those situations. And that's kind of the path to get him into the lineup the majority of the games, is maybe he catches close to 50%, but also a lot of the games when he doesn't catch, they do have this option of putting him on DH. And for the moment, they're just holding him back based on track record and back of the baseball card and experience. And if they really do care about optimizing the lineup with who they have on the roster right now, I would like to see him as that DH at least once a week. And if not, as a pinch hitter in certain situations later in the game.
Yeah, if you go by, well, first of all, to answer your question from before, Isaac, I actually know, I'm kind of acquainted with a guy that Fortes went to high school with, and from what he knows, and he was a pitcher before he got injured, from what he knows of him, and basically from what we've seen so far through his minor league career and up until now, he's always been really good at catching higher velocities, but he's never, ever really been good at catching lower velo finesse guys. So he's great at catching Edward Cabrera. He'd probably be very good catching Sandy Alcantara. However, he may struggle catching Eliezer Hernandez or, somebody like that, or Braxton Garrett. So, that's probably where his gap is defensively. Stallings, I mean, at least for his career, has always been great on defense. If you look at Stallings this year, though, his struggles are not only on the offensive side of the ball. He's not been good on defense, really, at all. So this 0.7 WAR, negative 0.7 WAR, which is almost a full game, is the third worst qualified catcher in Major League Baseball. And then his negative 55 WRC plus is almost the worst catcher in Major League Baseball. There's like a couple that are worse. So yeah, he's been really bad, and Fortes has only performed. So you got to talk about it immediately. I mean, this guy's hitting, he's playing good defense, and he's catching mostly velocity guys, like I just said. So I think he should be at least a 50% starter. If not, at least you've got to try to get him in the lineup because of what he's doing offensively. So like Eli said, if they are interested in winning baseball games right now, which that's to be debated, Fortes got to be in the lineup. So does John Birdie. So yeah, I mean, kind of flipped the script on where we were at the start of the season. Didn't think we may be saying both of those things, but we are. So you got to go with what's working, and they're what's working right now.
Yeah, Eli,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you really quick if you can, and whoever's next can go ahead. Eli, please put Jacob Stallings' baseball savant page and his percentile.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now.
I'm looking at it too. Yeah, it's not pretty.
This is this
So
is the
his,
color of
I knew it was bad just from watching him, but I didn't know it was this
yeah,
bad.
it's the number one thing that Marlins fans liked and that the whole industry liked about Stallings was his framing, and even there, he's a 25%.
He sucks.
He is just.
I wonder. I really wonder how much the what is it called PitchCom stuff is affecting him, if at all. It's a factor, right? I'm not going to say it's the worst thing ever, but he's not throwing down signs anymore. Maybe that's something that's affecting him. It would be something to ask him. But yeah, like we said, he has not been good on either side of the ball, and he is known historically as a very, very good, one of the best catchers definitely the best catcher in Major League Baseball last year. So yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know. Maybe it's PitchCom. Maybe it's just his mindset. Something's different. So
are there any catchers like in the league that have talked about that at length? Just the difference between PitchCom. I feel like there's been some like cursory comments, but
I mean, most catchers like it, but he's an older guy. He's old time. He's been catching for a long time. He's 32, 33. So yeah, I mean, it would be something that I would like to ask him. If one of you guys want to ask him when you go to a game, please do. But just like I would be interested to know if there's some kind of something there. But
Yeah,
With the PitchCom, so
There should be a not suitable for work message up on the screen.
as you guys can, not only are they all blue, some of them are in single digits, and you just don't see that. You don't see a starting caliber player.
Right. And the sprint speed, you expect that from a catcher, but that's just another really big difference between him and Fortes. That once they at least get on base, and I think at the very least, if Stallings, he does have the capacity to be, based on his track record and based on his plate discipline, he has the ability to get on base more than he has moving forward. It's just that once he gets on, it takes so much to even knock him in. And he does the one thing that is always missing and will continue to be missing is the power. He's not going to, aside from opening day and that one random time more recently, he's not going to drive in runs that way. So it's just a lot of value that he needs to make up for with his intangibles and with his defensive skills. And to this point, he's not been able to do that. As Alex mentioned, he's been a net negative overall. And I can't, it's pretty close to a realistic worst case scenario for when they made that trade.
And look, as Isaac pointed out, look at the framing statistic here. I mean, this guy is one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, and he just hasn't done it. He all of a sudden lost every ability to do that. So I don't know what happened. Something has happened to him in terms of his defense. He honestly, used to be a lot better than this offense. Well, it's easy to say he's been better than this offensively because this is, like Eli said, probably the worst that you could have expected from him. So yeah, something's going on with him, whether it's PitchCom, like I said, on the defensive side, whether it's changing league and he just hasn't been able to adjust mindset, something, I don't know, but something is going on. You don't just fall off that far on both sides of the ball just out of nowhere at that age.
And we look at the trade back, it's not looking like the worst thing in the world either, because Connor Scott and Kyle Nicholas aren't performing to what we know they could perform. Nicholas hasn't been that good. He's posting like a 4-point-something ERA, and Scott, I don't know the exact batting average and all that stuff, but he's not performing to the Connor Scott that we expected when he was drafted. So, I mean, if you're looking at the trade as the Marlins lost it already, it's not looking like the worst thing in the world at the moment either when you look at it on the Pirates side.
A lose-lose.
13 when
Lose, yeah.
Kevin?
Huh?
Weren't you 13 years old when they drafted Connor Scott?
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
Just so we don't spend too much time on the catching situation. Another player, unless you have something else, Eli.
No.
I had one more thing. Trivia off the top of your head. Where does Nick Fortes rank percentile-wise in sprint speed this year?
100.
No, it's among catchers, he is really high up there. Among
all players.
Yeah. I think it's 78th percentile.
Anyone else?
I said 89.
Yeah, it's somewhere around 75.
72nd. Yeah, but he was only 38th last year, so I don't know. But still, all right.
Very cool.
Nose boy.
It's sort of like a JT Real Muto light, like the swing, very close. Obviously, we don't know exactly.
Did you see the comp I put out today? I think Real Muto was kind of on his own stratosphere in terms of athleticism and skill set as catcher. But I see you squint offensively, at least a little bit of Jonathan Lucroy.
Yes, I did see that.
I saw it. It looks good.
Another player that's struggling is Brian De La Cruz. Marlins fans were livid, when he was sent down for that brief moment in late into spring training, and he has just not been the same Brian De La Cruz that he was in 2021. Offensively, defensively, right field, center field, wherever you put him in the lineup, he's just sucked. And so it's just time for him to get a flight to Jacksonville as well.
Yeah, I mean, look who's in Jacksonville right now. You have Yorar Encarnacion in Jacksonville. You have, I mean, who else can I even mention? Billy Hamilton's in Jacksonville. I know we were talking about that today with Eli before, but that's hilarious. We have to put the video of both of them announcing the lineup.
How can you break up this couple by sending one of them down? They're a package deal. And Sanchez has ticked up enough recently, so he's kind of off the bubble, off the hot seat for the moment.
Yeah, but no, like we thought De La Cruz at the start of the season would be this perfect fourth outfield scenario after what we saw in the second half of 2021, and just hasn't been. He got off to a hot start. I'll give him that. In April, he hit 313, 476, 500 slugging, 976 OPS. I mean, it looked perfect, and his defense was good enough compared to the other defensive outfielders we have at the moment. And just ever since that, it's been ticking down, 217 in May. Now he's hitting 191 in June. So it's time to see him go down to AAA. I think he's mainly playing right field. That's what he's been playing the most because they're sitting out Avi and Soler a lot. So I wouldn't mind seeing Yorar come up for a good stint in the major leagues, maybe even give that 40-man spot to Billy Hamilton. I know he's on that team. He plays natural center field. That's his natural position. So yeah, it's time to see Brian De La Cruz get those 30 home runs Noah said he would get in AAA Jacksonville.
His BABIP's only 250 though. I mean, he's been a little unlucky, right? From what I'm looking at, WOBA 272, expected WOBA 341. I don't want to be. I mean, he doesn't look good, but I don't want to be too hard on him. That he's just been like his ISO's barely down.
He is starting in left field tonight. I'll go out and say that last year I did say that he would be the best fourth outfielder in all of baseball, and
you did say that.
Some of the deeper numbers, as Tanner is telling us, do show maybe some sort of unluckiness. But we unfortunately, I think you do too. We all watch the games, and just to the naked eye, defensively especially, it's just not
right. It's the defense more so that makes him a clunky fit for this roster. You thought he'd be a guy that could play all three positions serviceably, and actually would be a plus, like in left or at least above average in right. That's what we saw last year, and this year he's just not playing as well defensively, and it's been some really big mistakes too. One that at least I think two that resulted in triples. Another one that was like a 2-base error on a single that added 2 bases to it. And the throws have not been as precise or as strong as they were last year. Like last year, he was showing the makings of being potential plus defender or at least above average. And this year, he's been a liability. And they mainly had him. They thought for sure he could play center field. That was the decision to put him on the roster in the first place, to have him up and kind of platooning for brief stretches with Sanchez, and that's no longer like realistic. So yeah, to me, the roster shuffle that I don't think is that crazy in a couple of days when Wendell is ready, bring up Wendell, bring up Billy Hamilton, and you barely use Billy Hamilton, but just as a defensive replacement, and start like one game a week at most, probably even less than that. Given the size of their roster and given the other hitters that they have, like De La Cruz isn't even going to be getting that much playing time in the first place in these coming days. That's the thing. I don't think he's a terrible player. He's just a clunky fit with the way that things are playing out and what we've seen this year.
Yep. And with that, we're going to take a break. We're a little bit overdue for the break, 4 minutes late, but a quick message from our sponsor, Loop.
Why bother with empty shelves at retail stores, waiting 3 days for a break to fill, or driving across town to find out your hobby shop closed at 4 when you always have a card show in your pocket? With Loop, you can instantly buy cards, packs, boxes, or into auctions with the click of a button, and do it all while chatting with some of the best personalities and the best community in the hobby. Download the Loop app now on iOS or Android. Loop, a card show in your pocket.
Fun as it was to discuss some of the Marlins, issues and to recap the Mets series. We do have a game tonight. The Marlins play the St. Louis Cardinals in Busch Stadium. Beautiful ballpark. I haven't been yet. Pablo Lopez will take the mound against Adam Wainwright. Sort of just seems like to be a Marlin killer in his, in a short time against the Marlins. If Eli can get the lineups up, there we go. No Jazz Chisholm tonight, unfortunately. I think my educated guess is that he's still dealing with a spazzy back. You have Garrett Cooper, Jorge Soler, Avisail Garcia hitting cleanup, Jesus Sanchez, Miguel Rojas, Brian Anderson, Brian De La Cruz. Brian's back-to-back. And you have Jacob Stallings hitting ninth. Once again, catching Pablo. Aside from Jazz being out of the lineup, sort of what sticks out to you guys? Normal lineup. Avi hitting fourth kind of stings a little bit, but what can you do?
It's your usual Marlins lineup. Not much more you could say. I mean, De La Cruz, yeah. Brian Anderson's the only great thing to have him back. I mean, Garrett Cooper hitting in the 2-hole. I've liked him there for a while now. Birdie's hitting first, the usual.
No Nick Fortes.
Yeah, no
it's
Nick
Pablo.
Fortes.
It's Pablo tonight. So
this is something I spoke about with Christina. I think on Sunday during the game, and it's just Soler. Why not just have him hit fourth? He's been hitting third all year long, aside from that little, I think, first 10 games where he was hitting leadoff. He has not moved from that 3 spot. And I put out a tweet the other day that he is slugging a very low amount for the amount of times that he's striking out, and it's just really not your prototypical number 3 hitter. So I don't know if you guys concur or your thoughts on that. Okay.
Soler's never been good against Wainwright. There's that.
Yeah.
3 for 18. Garcia's surprising. 5 for 15 lifetime.
Yeah.
All singles though.
Yeah. What surprised me is those are the only 2 with not even extensive, but some track record against Wainwright. He's been around forever, but most of these other guys have only faced him 2 or 3 games total in their entire careers. That was a little surprising. So you don't know. You don't have a great feel exactly how this is going to go against somebody like him. Again, the Fortes thing was expected. The one thing I hope to see that we hadn't seen in recent games is in all these tight tie games, other high leverage situations in the later innings, once Pablo is out of the game, if that situation arises, I don't see the hesitation to use Fortes as a pinch hitter for Stallings. With all due respect to Stallings, there's just no case to be made for why he should be batting in any matchup with the game on the line when it comes down once that late into a game, once those intangibles of working with the starter are no longer there. So that's just one thing to look out for, assuming this is going to be a close game. But anything else here? Yeah, Birdie at second base with Jazz out of the lineup, and we're going to continue to see exactly how they keep Birdie in the lineup, assuming Jazz gets past this and assuming Wenzel gets back. The big question to me is whether they are going to feel comfortable using him in the outfield on a consistent basis, especially in center field, which he still has not. I don't think he's played yet that position at all during the regular season.
Yeah, they have to move him once Wendell and Jazz are both back, and they got to keep him in the lineup. So where else do you go? So yeah, I think you're right. I think we eventually will see him in center field, and then if you call up Hamilton, he's just your emergency defensive replacement.
And really
but what sticks out for me is this lineup's going to have a hard time turning over. That's for sure. You got De La Cruz down there. You got Stallings down there. This is against one of the better pitchers, definitely a Hall of Famer when his career ends. And then you don't know. I mean, you hope that BA is going to come back at 100% and be fine, but maybe it's a slow get back for him, and he struggles out of that 7 spot. So that's probably why he's that far down. They just want to see what kind of shape he's in, coming back. Maybe taking a bat away rather than giving 4 bats, give him 3, whatever it is. So yeah, just limit the workload and see what you have in terms of Brian Anderson. But I think he's definitely like that more 5-hole guys, maybe 6. But yeah, it's probably the only reason that Miguel Rojas is hitting over him tonight. So I would worry about the ability of this Marlins lineup to turn over. Bases loaded situation comes up and Jacob Stallings is at the plate. They're not going to run. So and that sucks. So and that definitely could happen. So yeah, some issues there, but hey, it's baseball. I never know what can happen. But this team is not set up very well right now to win baseball games. And
this Cardinals, defense is probably arguably the best one in baseball with that outfield. And I know they're missing a big piece in Harrison Bader right now. He's put on the IL, but it's still very, very good.
The year-over-year numbers, defensive runs saved and outs above average, they're way down across the board for the Cardinals. They're basically league average defense. They've been most of the year, which I thought was just super surprising, especially because that pitching staff, they over the last probably 3 years, they have one of the better. What do they call it? FIP minus ERA. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Those pitchers always consistently overperform because of all of these Gold Glove guys, but they just haven't been that good this year.
This team, this Cardinals team, this organization, I should say, all they do is churn out quality major league pitchers. That's literally all it does ever. And they've been that way for a long, long, long time, going back to Adam Wainwright. So seriously, that is all this organization does. The Marlins got Sandy Alcantara from him. The Marlins got Zach Gallen from them. The Marlins got Dan Castano from them. Like, Dan Castano's not one of the best ones, but just another example, right? They just churn out major league quality starting pitching. That's all that organization knows how to do. Sometimes they struggle on the offensive side of the ball. I think they're slightly down this year, as Tanner was just mentioning. This is still a good lineup. They still got 300 batting averages in there. They got a 283 in Arenado, which 14 home runs is pretty good. Edmund in the leadoff spot is good. He's a fast guy. Brendan Donovan has a really good on-base percentage. So, I think that this team is very good, and I think their record shows it, and I think they're definitely a playoff contender.
Yeah, and the poster child for what Tanner was bringing up about guys getting better results than you'd expect. We're going to see him tomorrow for the second game. Dakota Hudson, his career, a 3.27 ERA, and you'd think that's great. And then you look at the FIP, 4.64 in his career. He's like well below average in terms of the stuff he can control, and yet his ERA is better than Sandy's or Pablo's.
I am a huge Dakota Hudson fader. I consistently look to bet against him. So I wish we got him on like a Sandy or a Pablo start, but I'm still going to bet the Marlins.
Yeah, no,
sure.
There was a time where I did bet the over on his strikeouts, and this guy screwed me. But before we go into the Marlins injury updates, just quick lineup on the Cardinals. Tommy Edman leading off. You'd think he's one of the guys that would be a threat to Jazz in the All-Star voting. He's not. Brendan Donovan, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Nolan Gorman, Dylan Carlson, Juan Yepes, Lars Nootbaar, and Ivan Herrera is the catcher. No Yadier Molina tonight. Is he injured?
He's injured. He's injured.
Okay, I was going to say.
There's actually a couple of new guys that are on that Cardinals roster. We have Lars Nootbaar, and I'm pretty sure the other
Nolan Gorman's a fun guy. I like that prospect a lot. He's a fun guy to look at.
Is Yepes a prospect, or was he a prospect?
Yep.
Probably. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So they have a couple of new guys from the last time we saw the Cardinals down here in Miami. So we may have a different result, hopefully.
I've been a bit surprised that Dylan Carlson this year. He really hasn't been fantastic. I mean, actually, all of his metrics are down completely from where they were last year. So that's a guy I would probably look to bring it up because he's really, really good as an offensive baseball player. I really like Dylan Carlson. I think he's definitely a real deal.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, the injury updates for the Miami Marlins today. Edward Cabrera, we hadn't heard about him, dealing with a personal issue. He's throwing 90 feet today. Lewis Head is beginning a throwing program on Wednesday. Jordan Holloway has been reinstated from the minor league IL, and he'll be reporting to Jacksonville. I assume it's going to be in the bullpen. I hope to just sort of,
the Cody Poteet role.
I hope that's definitely the best case scenario for him. Maybe a second inning, but I think all of us can agree that that's just the best spot for Jordan Holloway. Jesus Luzardo is throwing at 105 feet today. Cody Poteet, 15 to 20 pitches in a FCL game on Thursday. Sixto Sanchez, everybody's favorite prospect, threw at 105 feet today. He's got a bullpen on Wednesday. And Cole Sulser, one of the higher leverage bullpen guys from Miami, he's on his way back. He had a light catch today. So I guess the biggest thing there, you guys go ahead.
The biggest thing is throwing at 105 feet because that's a long toss. So that's the biggest thing for both Luzardo and Sixto Sanchez. Cabrera is just so interesting. I mean, you're supposed to rehab with Max starting last week and apparently had some kind of problem personally. And now they bumped him all the way back to just throwing drills again. So maybe just taking it super easy and easing him back in after he missed a week. But that's kind of interesting to me that, he's now not ready again to go straight to a rehab assignment. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, and then Poteet's coming back. That's good. Pitching in rehab games. He may probably will go to Jacksonville after the FCL, maybe Jupiter. So yeah, when he comes back, you have questions to answer in the bullpen because he definitely has a spot as a multiple inning guy. So yeah, there's definitely some crunch that's going to happen here with bullpen guys. Of course, the main one to go down, we all know who probably will be. But yeah, Poteet's got to come back when he's ready. So that's what you look at in the meantime. But definitely great news on Luzardo and Sanchez. After a bullpen, Sixto is probably going to go to minor league rehab. So yeah, some good news there on those guys that they're not that far away.
Right. Sixto should be back at least second half of the season.
No, Kevin, you should pump the brakes on when he should be back, if he will be back. This is all just baby step by baby step.
Oh yeah,
I'm glad we've gotten to this point. So let's see how this bullpen
they
goes.
could easily shut him down again. You know how it goes with this guy, so they could easily say, "Oh yeah, he's done again," right? So yeah, obviously, when you hear bullpen, you're like, "Oh, that's great news," but it's still going to be a little while. But he's getting closer to a minor league rehab assignment, which is the good news. But again, a lot can happen still. So.
Right. With Holloway officially off a rehab assignment, I don't know what the delay is instead of putting him on the roster instead of Nance. They're afraid to use Nance. He's not even pitching. He's taking up a roster spot. And the way that the limitation that went into effect and where you can't even carry more than 13 pitchers at a time, one of your relievers should be a traditional long man or somebody that you feel really comfortable going more than once through an order when necessary. Holloway was exactly that guy early on last year when he was having some success in the big leagues. And a better version of him, frankly, that we saw this year was Poteet. Poteet emerging as a great option there. And in this time, it looks like probably maybe 2 weeks-ish before Poteet is fully back up to speed. Maybe even less than that. I would like to see Holloway get a little audition for that because this is his final option year. He's 26 years old. He's been in the organization since like 2014. Do I have that right? He's been around a long time. And I think they should finally just give him a steady role on the team, even if it's not a major role, and find out what they got because this stuff is great. And you just had this one spot where it's not going to make a dramatic difference in the team's fortunes, but I'd like to just find out whether or not he's actually a piece of their future in any way.
We've talked about it so many times about their inability to let go of guys as starting pitchers. You saw it with George Guzman. You're now seeing it with Holloway. You know, like Neidert is another one that they now have back in the starting rotation after saying they were going to make him a reliever. Now he's starting again. He's actually doing pretty good, but that's AAA. So, like, the point is they just have problems letting go of guys. They can't just commit to them being relievers. They just want to buy in so much to their future as starters when there may not ever be one. And I don't think there is one for Jordan Holloway. He's definitely at his best when he's in that kind of a role. Will they commit to it? I hope you're right, Eli. But I think Poteet definitely has a spot. But for the meantime, Holloway's ahead of him in terms of health. Give him a shot, man. See what you got, like you said. So I agree with you, but I don't know if they'll do it.
And with George Guzman, at least he was a Stanton trade piece return, so there's like reason to try and really milk it. But with Holloway, I think he was drafted. I just don't
2014, yep, round 20.
I don't know why he wouldn't just be put, especially like you mentioned, Tommy Nance. He made his first appearance with the Marlins this year on May 9th. After his first 2 outings, he has an ERA of 7 in 14 innings pitched. He's given up 11 earned runs. He's walked 10 guys. There's, like Eli said, they're afraid to use him. They should be afraid to use him. There should be no reason that he's taking up a very valuable. Right. He's got an area of
pitcher. Why is an unusable pitcher on the major league roster when you have better options? Like I don't understand. I don't get.
I would assume that they'll DFA him right when Cody Poteet comes back. But
do they still have a 40-man roster spot open? Or
they do.
They do, right? Because they DFA'd us. Yeah, so they do.
No, not us. Yeah, I think it was us. They had it before our studios. I know that.
I think at this particular moment they do not. It's full because Eric Gonzalez got selected.
You're right.
Okay, so
assuming that he gets DFA'd, then they're going to have an open one.
Right, and that probably will happen. So yeah. The roster constructions, I can't get into it. I'm not.
That'll get us. That'll grind our gears, for the last 2 or 3 years. But the last thing we're gonna touch on before we get into our predictions is just sort of a new thing. We have Tanner McGrath on here who works on the handicaps for the Action Network, and we're just saying, let's do some props. See what you would recommend, Tanner, our betting expert. I'm the furthest thing from that, but I like to do it once in a while as well. The thing that stood out to me, I'll give my favorite prop is a 4.5 strikeouts for Adam Wainwright. I always slam the over on that guy. I think he's mentioned 3 in a row where he covers the over. I would slam that. Tanner, the floor is yours.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Hitters in this game are tough. Be like Eli talked about earlier. We don't have much of a sample size on the other side. If you're gonna target a hitter, go Arenado. He's 4 for 9 against Pablo lifetime. But thanks for pulling up my article, by the way. Shameless plug, download the Action Network app. Pablo, a little bit shaky last few starts. I mean, everyone's kind of seen it. It's I guess he was always due for a bit of regression. I think he'll go forward. But his strikeout numbers, they have not dropped at all. 9 batters per 9 innings, and that's basically 1 per inning. I think he goes 5 innings every single time. 2 starts against St. Louis since last year. 6 2/3 innings, 7 innings respectively, 6 and 9 strikeouts respectively. And Isaac, you brought this up earlier that Lopez usually goes over. How about 12 of 14 this year over 4.5 and 75% rate since the start of 2020. I like to look at two different projection systems for every single strikeout. Our internal Action Labs projections, we have Lopez at 6 tonight, and then Fangraphs, Saberson projections 5.15. So it's a little bit pricey to pay it, but I'll take it because I think it goes over. I think if you get it at like anything under -170 is probably my target point for it, just in terms of value. And to continue on, if you who controls the screen here, can you scroll down?
Mr. Eli.
I don't think it's going to let me scroll down. This
It's
was
not
just
gonna
a
scroll you down?
big
Oh,
screenshot. Yeah.
No worries. So, Isaac Waino over 4.5. Last year he was money every single start. This year he actually went through a bit of a lull, and I think it was from the end of last year into the start of this year, like middle 6 or 7 starts. One of 5 he hit this line. He went like 3 against Cincinnati, 4 against Arizona, 2 against Kansas City. But he seems to have come around. Last 4, 10 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 5 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts. Again, his numbers are similar to Pablo. He's just been a little shaky recently, and with the Cardinals defense not being as good as it has been in the past, I'm not really as confident on him. But again, the same thing with Pablo. He's faced the Marlins twice since the start of last year, when he hit 7 strikeouts on 105 pitches in one start last year, 32% called strike plus whiff rate, which is great for him, way above his averages. And then earlier this year, he went 92 pitches, 6 strikeouts. So I think it's a good matchup, both sides. And same thing, our projections have him at 5.5. Fangraphs have him at 5 on the dot. And this is only -125 basically across the market. You can find it.
Yeah,
so,
if I remember correctly, both of those starts against the Cardinals this year and last year. Last year it was both of them were at home, but last year I think it was his second start of the season, and that's when him and Sandy just got off to great starts in their first 2 against Tampa and then St. Louis, and they both were pitching phenomenally. So I think being in St. Louis might, you would think, Vegas knows it all, but it might have something to do with it. Why it's a little bit lower than it usually is. I think I've seen like at 5.5, 6.5 for Pablo. Sometimes he's coming off a 6 strikeout performance against the Colorado Rockies. So we'll see. I don't know if Eli, Alex, Kevin have any thoughts on that as well.
I can't bet, so I really don't have much advice to give anyone.
Still a few months away for Kevin to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Like, I hadn't even checked how often Wainwright has pitched without Yadier Molina, and whatever that difference could mean. We saw that. I guess he's made a couple starts already this season without him. But I'm always that their rapport and chemistry is like next level. All the records they've set for like most starts and most wins together, and this is one of the few times where they're catching him without his better half or his worse half or his other half, whatever you want to call Molina. The fact that he's throwing to this rookie catcher tonight makes me a little bit more optimistic on what the Marlins can do for whatever it's worth, because he doesn't have the same mind meld, I would think, that Molina has with Wainwright.
It's Ivan Herrera, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and one thing on Pablo really quick, he has only had, the over-unders at 4.5 strikeouts. He's only had under 5 strikeouts twice this year and 2 starts of his, how many starts does he have? A good amount. So that's, slam the over on both, and that would be my advice for sure.
Yeah, he's gotten over 5 in, what is that? That would be 5 or more, 25 of 34 dating to start of last season.
There you go.
He's so consistent.
Make sure to come to us for expertise on sports betting. I guess we could sort of transition into predictions, which is another sort of thing you can maybe take into the sports book. 3 games against St. Louis. Pablo Lopez, remind me who starts tomorrow. Sandy Alcantara on Wednesday.
Braxton Garrett
tomorrow. And then Sandy on Wednesday.
I'm sorry, on Tuesday, Sandy on Wednesday. Kevin, you have the floor for your prediction, sir.
I need to pass Eli in these predictions. So Pablo
tied for last. Nice.
No, yeah, you're getting a gun there.
Oh, and while you think about it, Kevin, because I know you like to think about it for a while.
I didn't need to think.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm gonna say 2 out of 3. They'll win the Pablo and Sandy start. although I do believe Braxton will have a good start in St. Louis. And the MVP, I'm gonna go Miggy Rowe. He's been killing it lately. The guy had a good homer the other day. He's been good. I want to go Miggy Rowe here. Last time I did it was when they did it when I said sweep for the Phillies and Citizens Bank, and the guy got it going, and he's been good ever since. So I'll say it again, and hopefully that activates another hot streak for Miggy.
That's my exact pick, man. Oh.
I like that. And for the people not pictured, Noah Berger, our favorite human, he says the Marlins will win 2 out of 3, optimistic as ever. And Sandy Alcantara will be the MVP. And Mr. Brent Coscuella, he says the Marlins will win 2 out of 3 as well. And John Birdie will be the MVP.
And then Lewis says Marlins win 1 out of 3, and Sandy's the MVP.
Okay.
He's been doing that.
I have the Marlins winning only 1 out of 3 in this series. I got to admit, I'm kind of wishy-washy on this one. I'm on a hot streak for Tanner, who might not know. I think I've picked 6 of the last 7 series correct to expand my lead right there. But this one I could see going either way, to be honest with you. Anytime you have both Pablo and Sandy pitching in the series, you have BA coming back. That helps. But I think they're going to come up just short and only win 1. Series MVP, Tommy Edman, who has been on my fantasy team, and he's been a bright spot on my terrible fantasy team this year.
Okay. Tanner, give us your inaugural Fish Stripes predictions.
2 out of 3. Definitely win the Sandy start. 1 of the 2. I can't tell which one. I was going to say Miggy Rowe, but since that got stolen from me, and I might only be on this show once if you guys didn't like me, I'll go a little bit different. Give me Garrett Cooper.
I like it.
He goes, let's say, like 5 for 12 with 2 extra base hits.
Eli does have inside sources for his MVPs. He's gotten like the last 3 of them correct, so we should have let Eli go first this time.
That's right. You said you were going to plan on that, and you should.
I don't like that. That's cheating. We do it the honest way here at Fish Stripes. Alex Carver, give us your series and MVP.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Kev and Tanner and say they get 2 in the series. I don't bet against Sandy. I don't bet against Pablo. The Cardinals are very good against lefties. Braxton, not fantastic his last time out, so I think they'll lose that one for sure. So yeah, I'll go 2 out of 3. I think they'll get both of those games. I think the offense will do enough. Hopefully they start Fortes, or at least give him some bats in this series over Stallings, and it gets a little easier that way. But yeah, 2 of 3, and I'm going to say Brian Anderson comes back and makes immediate impact and gets MVP for me.
Nice.
I like that one. I was gonna.
And really quick, you're going to get huge plus money with the Fish tomorrow. Take it. If you're a betting person, just
with
take
Braxton.
it.
Yeah, I don't know if I bet on Braxton. You're
going to get
slug over 400 against lefties, so
you're going to get plus 140. It's going to be worth it.
Yeah, but with Arenado and Goldschmidt at that 3 and 4 spot, I think that's why they're going to be 140.
Hey, he did well against the Astros.
He did do very well. Braxton has looked phenomenal. He's a totally different pitcher, night and day from last year to this year. Slider, sinker combinations, and obviously the lethal curveball that he's had since the draft. My prediction: Miami loses 2 out of 3. The Cardinals just have the Marlins number. They're 1-8 in their last 9 contests against the Cardinals. And the MVP, I think Jesus Sanchez has sort of a resurrection. I don't think he's been MVP for a long time. I remember the beginning of the year, it was him and Jazz taking turns being MVP. I think he comes back. He has a homer in this series, 3 right-handed pitchers for the Cardinals. And I think Jesus Sanchez has a big series. Hopefully,
is this the first time someone doesn't choose Jazz as the MVP?
Well, he's not playing tonight. So.
Well, exactly, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Unless anyone has anything else, any other little news and notes. Tanner, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. All the great numbers you threw at us. We love it all. For Kevin, for Eli, for Tanner, for Alex, for Brent, for myself, thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you in a couple days.
Why bother with these shelves at retail stores, waiting 3 days for a break to fill, or driving across town to find out your hobby shop closed at 4 when you always have a card show in your pocket? With Loop, you can instantly buy cards, packs, boxes, or into auctions with the click of a button. And do it all while chatting with some of the best personalities and the best community in the hobby. Download the Loop app now on iOS or Android. Loop, a card show in